Hey guys and gals, welcome to Miyagi Mornings, episode 24. I'm going to have to stop doing that soon because how many times can I do that? I don't know. Anyway, so today we are back outside and I'm going to unplug. I forgot to do this. I'm going to unplug the Miyagi, so all we got for background noise is ducks and chickens crowing. All right, so what we're going to talk about today comes from the episode that we did earlier this week on gardening and the ROI, the economic ROI on gardening and plant propagation and being like printing money. I made a statement toward the end of that video that got more interest in emails to me than anything else I said in it, and it's one of my laws of life. Always be frugal, never be cheap. So I thought we would talk about that today. And friends and neighbors, this is one to share with your friends and neighbors who may not be ready for an hour and a half of me on a podcast just yet, because this one can literally change lives for the better over the long term. So whenever I talk about this, I always try to explain it from the standpoint of something that's really easy to get your head around as a starting point. So my number one thing I use to describe this with is a garden hose. Garden hoses are the epitome, right, of where paying less is always a bad idea. So you can pay a lot of money for a garden hose that ain't that great. That's overspending, or brand identity spending or something like that. That's not good either. What we're always looking for in a purchasing decision is what we call value to price ratio. So if you go out and you buy a 50-foot garden hose that says something like Never Kink, which by the way that brand should be called Ever Kink because all it ever does is kink, for like $19.99 down at Tractor Supply, you will have a miserable experience. You'll have a hose that maybe will last you 2 years at best while you're miserable. It will always kink, and because it always kinks with weather extremes and all, it will eventually crack and fail and fall apart. If you go out and you buy one of the hoses that I recommend that I'll put a link for in the video notes at T-Spaz off of Amazon, you will pay about 2 times as much money for it. And it will actually not kink on you if you set it up right. When you set up a garden hose, I can't get into that. There's actually a right way to initially set up your garden hose, believe it or not. But if you do that, and then you take proper care of it, it'll last 6, 7, 8 years or more. And if it does fail, it'll be something like an end piece you can cut off and replace for a few bucks with a new hose end. And if you do that, then you have kind of a very long-term investment. Now, I don't know if there's ever going to be a garden hose that's going to last 50 years, all right? So, rubber is rubber in the end, right? But you see the difference there. So if we get 10 years out of a hose for $50, then we're looking at what? $2 a year? $2.50 a year, right? Where if we get 1 year out of a hose for $20, we're looking at $20 a year. That, again, like when I talked about gardening, that didn't really make sense to a lot of people that, we're going to talk about lettuce and celery. Like my lettuce and celery bill is not what I'm really worried about in my life. My electric bill is. But like I said before, winning with money is about making little correct decisions over and over and over and over and over again over time. And the people who are cheap never do this. The people who buy the cheapest options not only end up paying more for the item long term by having to replace it, maintain it, and be miserable and losing time while they're using it, depending on what it is, they also then tend to, because they think cheaply, they spend their money poorly in all walks of life, and they overspend on tons of things that they don't need. People that are always running this computation in their head, hey, look, I'm going to spend more than $5. I might as well get the best I can for the money on my return of investment. That becomes something that goes into the mental computer as programming. And this is what I really need you to get today. It's so far beyond always be frugal, never be cheap. The human mind is a computer. It is the most powerful computer known to man infinity. Because it can do things even if a computer is faster with a problem it's programmed to solve. Determining how to solve the problem, no computer yet can do what we can do in our brains at the speed that we can do it with. We are that powerful. And we have a true self-learning computer in our brain. When I talk about artificial intelligence, what they're trying to do is teach a computer to learn as it goes. You can do that. But like all computers, garbage in, garbage out. How you set your programming determines everything in your life, whether you succeed or fail with it. And whether you even believe that you succeeded when you failed. Because if you have no money, you can't afford to lose your job for 2 weeks, but you have a country club membership, you are not the success that you think you are. I'm sorry, you're not, right? So this is This is one of the few absolutes in the world. There's usually many answers to a thing. That's why one of my favorite things to say when somebody says, well, how do I or what should I? And it depends. But when it comes to your mental computer, you only have two options. Either the mental computer is conditioned to see a problem as something worthy of solving, or the mental computer is conditioned to see a problem as something that must be complied with and accepted. There's no other option. There's no other option. And once you really set your computer that way, you're either the person that when you're told to do something, you just obey and say, what can you do? Or you're the person that immediately says to yourself, how can I not do this if I don't want to? You might even say, well, because this is something I want to do anyway, I'm going to go do it. But you're going to actually ask that question before you just willingly comply with whatever bullshit comes down the pike next. You see how that works? And this transcends into your financial decisions. It absolutely does. It's actually not that hard. It's so easy to win with money. And those of you that are new to me, I do not have a how to get rich course. I don't do that shit. I don't have $99 and I'll tell you how to turn $99 into $1 million and then have a thing on the other side of the course that says, do what I did and get a bunch of people to buy your shit, right? That's not me. I don't have any way for you to do this other than basically what I'm giving you today. You must evaluate whenever you're spending money, and it's more than a few dollars, and we can get to the few dollars decisions later on, because that's a lot of times that shit adds up to blowing a shitload of money on something you have nothing to show for. But when it comes down to it, when you're like, I need to buy a fill in the blank, and you actually do need it, or you really want it, or in some way will improve your life, or enable your business to make more money or something like that, you need to always run at least a back-of-the-napkin financial analysis. And if it's something that's going to take like a week's pay or more, that shit needs to go in a spreadsheet. And let me tell you something about spreadsheets. This is my famous saying, Excel never lies. If you put the right, just like your computer, you got to put the right information in. But if you put the right information in a spreadsheet, what comes out at the bottom, the tabulations, are always accurate. And then they make decisions very easy to make. When we decided to lease versus buy a car, I didn't do it because somebody on the radio said rich people lease cars. I looked at the individual car we were leasing, what the return value was, etc., and I looked at the longevity of a loan against it versus a lease against it, and the spreadsheet said, in this instance, thou shalt lease because thou shalt not be stupid with thy money. Got it? Now, if I put a different model car in there from a different manufacturer under different terms, that calculus will change. The answer isn't buy or lease. The answer is, what is the situation at the present time, and what does that lead us to do with our money so that we are not stupid? Because in the famous words of economist Peter Schiff, money goes where it's treated well. Now, when Peter said that, he was talking about the policies that countries have with things like taxation and import taxes and things like that, and duties and customs and all that other stuff, and regulation on business, and he was right. However, that does not keep that from trickling down to you as an individual. If you treat money like shit, money will leave your pockets. Period. The end of story. And I say this all the time. Some of you hate money. And the only way I can come to that conclusion is I look at what you do with your money, and I say, clearly you hate money. Or I look at what you do with your business to avoid getting money into your business and say, clearly you hate money. You might not believe you hate money. You might think I'm wrong. But when money knows you hate it, money leaves you. It goes away. When you treat money well and you understand the mechanics of money, you will always be able to create abundance in your life, even with a relatively low income. Trust me, my life is an example of that. It really is. I do well as a podcaster and a media personality, but I did better as a business owner in the corporate world. It just made me miserable. But my lifestyle's only gotten better since I left that behind over 10 years ago. And do you know why? Because I practice what I preach, guys. Treat money well, and you'll have it. Money is basically a mathematical formula, or you can think of it as thermoeconomics. There are rules. If you break the rules, you lose, and if you follow the rules, you win. It's one of the places where you actually should follow the rules, not society's rules, math's rules. With that, hope you enjoyed today's episode. I will have another one for you to wrap up the week tomorrow.